Okay, so this week is about plotting and graphing, and next week is also a little bit more plotting and graphing, but it's more focused on visualization of images and data. So in your reading, it goes over many different kinds of plots, right? Like 2D line plots, 3D plots, some bar graphs, and next week it has a chapter on scatter plots, and also it's going to show you images. And what I'm going to use lecture for is kind of just demonstrations on creating these plots. Today I'm specifically going to cover 2D line plots and bar graphs. I'm going to show you not just how to plot them, but also how to make them look more presentable. Because if you just use the main function, like bar or plots, yes, you get a graph, right? But it doesn't look very good. So I'll show you an example of that. So let's first get some data. Just gonna get random data. I'm going to do bar first. So this is my data. And to make a bar graph of the data, it's simply bar and then you input the data. And here's a bar graph of the data. So there's 5 rows. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars, and then there's 3 columns. So these columns are corresponding to like the same data. And then this is the next group, next group, next group, next group. And we have a graph here, right? But it's not labeled at all. This is one problem, right? So let's first add some labels here. So ytick label. There. That's not what we want. To add y label. Fix labels. Y label. Okay. And then you can just give it a name. We don't really have any real data here. But another thing that you can kind of see is it's not very easy to read this. It's very thin. Something that I always do when I'm making these plots is change the fonts. I usually just choose Arial. The more important thing is that you make it larger and bold. And then it becomes much easier to see. Especially when you're putting these plots onto, like you'll do in your report, on a Word document, things like that. And you can kind of play around with it once you have it. Maybe let's make it 16. And it also automatically adjusts these y ticks, x ticks to account for the size of the text. So if you want it to show more ticks, you can shrink this text, but if you want to make sure the text is still this large, you can go back to do the ticks and you can manually set them. So one thing that we might want to change here is like the x ticks. So x tick label, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We might give it a better name, but we don't really have a real name for it, right? So this is like group 1, data 1. Data 2. 3, theta 4, theta. And now they would have names. Okay. The other thing that we are missing is the title, right? And just a couple of other things that make this easier to read. We have grids. So adding Y grids draws that line across. And for the bar graphs, the Y grids are much more important than the X grids. But one thing is, just like with the text before, this is kind of hard to see, especially when you move it into a Word document. So usually what I will do is make the width a little bit thicker and also the color at the alpha. The alpha is probably the most important thing. It's what makes it really pop out. Did you see that? And the other thing that you can do is you can edit the bars themselves. So you can make them specific colors or also change the width. So one thing that I like to do is make sure that they're touching to fill in the empty space. What you can also do is make the outline of it a little bit thicker to again make it more visible. So it's 0.5, now I'm making it a 1. But that's still not as noticeable, so I'll maybe make it 1.5. Yeah. 0.5, 1.5. So we all saw that? Okay. The other thing that we are missing, if we go to figure, we should have a legend. So this would tell us what do these 3 data points actually mean. Like the blue is one specific type, orange is one type, yellow is one type, right? And then this is the comparison between the 3, comparison between the 3 different comparisons. So you could give it a real name here. And one thing that is also sometimes helpful, if we can go to here, it's vertical right now, and it works well here in this corner, right? Because this is just dead space. But sometimes you'll want to move it around, change its orientation. Like this works too. And you can also put it up here. You can move the title out of your way if you need to. Like if your graph is completely filled up. But in this case, we don't need to. Okay, and then this, I would say, is a fairly decent bar graph. The only other thing I might add is Y minor grid. So there's like the lines in between of the main Y ticks. And for the Y minor grid, I don't really change the value as high. Maybe I'll make it 0.5. Because if you don't make it a little bit darker, sometimes it just, when you export it as a PNG and then put it into like a Word document, you really can't see the Y minor grid at all. So that's something that you can play with. But I would say that this graph is fairly good. Yeah.
Change the Y value, like.
Yeah.
2 instead of 1, so it can access that.
What do you mean? 2
Like-
instead of 1?
Like if I wanted to have like a label at the top, I didn't have room, can I just change the Y value to like 1.5 so then I'd actually have room?
So here we have and 4.5. Need to add it here. So that adds 0. That's not helpful. And then you'd also have to change the, so that's y2. There's another setting somewhere for like the range of it. I don't know exactly where it is, but you would be able to do that. Any other question? But in this case, I wouldn't do it. Okay. There's no need. There's empty space. Okay, one other thing that is very helpful is once I have this graph, let me go over. Just see it. Why is it not letting me read? Hello, MATLAB. I want to close it because I have not saved it. Oh, I stuck. I will have to remake that. Okay. It's still not liking this. Okay, we just have to remake it. And then again, this was the figure we started with. Okay. Okay. Let's remake this. Not even showing me. Okay. Right. I'll just try and quickly remake this. I might not make all of the changes because we already did it. Just want to go through a couple of things and then show you one other can be helpful. put a title. A Y label. Alright, this is close. The only other thing I'm missing is legend. Right, this is almost where we were. And we're stuck again. Why is it doing this to me now? Anyways, if you see this thing flashing, you see this? The generates function. Do you see it? If you click that, it'll create code to generate this function so you don't have to manually do it every single time. Then, rather than doing bar data and creating that figure and doing it all from scratch, as long as your data is the same size, you can do, I'm going to create figure, which is the function name here, right? My data is not the same size as what I had before. So I'm going to create new data. And it creates a figure that's of the same format that you had before. You see that? Okay, it's up here, generate function. But MATLAB Online is not liking me right now. So this is a bar graph. And it's important that you know how to do, not just make the bar graph, like with the bar data, but how to also make it presentable. And when you import it into a Word document, everything is visible. So that is our bar graph. I'm going to close this figure 1. And now let's do a line, 2D line graph. Here. Let's just put 4 lines. Data is this random. So again, just random data. And then to make a line plot, it's just plot. And then here is our plot of a bunch of just random lines. So again, what do we think we're going to do here? What are we missing? Okay, so let's add. I have an X label, Y label, a title, right? What else? Yeah, we don't have a legend currently. So here's a legend. Probably be better. No, doesn't fit very well. Just put it here for now. What else? What else do we want to do to this?
That's good.
Y grid, and you always have to change this. Otherwise, it just does not show up. And I'm just going to add the minor grid over here. Anything else? Yes. overall fonts. Again, just go Arial. And the most important thing again is that you bold everything. What about our lines? Are they easy to see? So you can change line. You can also add these little markers. And I usually like to fill them with white. And now you can see the data points that you actually have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have 10 lines here, so you go through all of them. And you can see that it automatically changes the legend as well. The line width made it to match. Add a marker. The only thing is to avoid this where you see that the line is just going through the circle. That's why I make the marker base color either the same as the line or white. But making it white just makes the marker pop out as well. So we would go through and add all of those markers. And are we good with this graph? Yes. We would just do all the lines to make sure that they're all visible. Let's see if we can, no, it still does not want me to be able to generate the function. I guess I can't show you, but again, you would go here, click generate function, and then this would just pop up. And then you can save it in order to use it. But it does not want me to show you that. Okay, any questions? Yes.
What does the bold function do under create axis?
On where?
Under create axis column. It says bold.
Under, oh, okay, I'll show you. Okay, let's clear this. So let's say I have data 1. Is this? And then data 2 is pretty similar. And then I do this, plots, data 1. I get a graph with data 1. Okay. And then let's say I want to add another line to this for data 2. I want them to be on the same plots. If I do plots, data 2, I get a new figure. They're not on the same graph. So if I want them on the same graph and they're not in the same matrix, I can do hold on, plots, data 1, plots, data 2, hold off. And now they're on the same graph. What's another way that we can do this? What can we do instead? Yeah. So data 1, and then data 2. We get a new matrix called data. I might need to transpose this if I want, but let's just see. Plot data. I did mean plots. Yeah, so we need to transpose it. This isn't what we want. We want to plot data, transpose. And those are our 2 lines. Okay, so that's what the hold on and hold off is for. So if you want to create a plot and then add more to it before it shows up, then that's what hold on and hold off is for. So yeah, looking through this can also help you like just do everything through, because you can't create all of the changes that we did graphically with code. But one might be better for you depending on you. And if you've used Python plotting, the code for Python plotting matplotlib is the same code that is used here. So we all know how to make these plots, make them look pretty. Hopefully you can generate code to make the plots. The only thing is maybe don't use MATLAB online. Like you should probably use MATLAB locally. I'm using MATLAB online right now because I can't install MATLAB on this computer. Okay. I've never encountered that problem locally though. Okay. All right, so I'll stop the lecture then.